Hey, everybody. This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good looking friends. In light of recent conversations in discussing the WHO, the UN, and the WEF, many of you have brought to my attention a quote that was made by Prince Philip about coming back in the next life as a deadly virus in order to curb population. Well, at first, when I read that, I was like, oh, maybe that's some false rumor running around on the internet. But sure enough, I did some digging, and yes, there is a quote that's flying around that says what you see on this screen. So there's this quote floating around, allegedly a Prince Philip saying, in the event that I am reincarnated, I would like to return as a deadly virus in order to contribute something to solve overpopulation. Literally, this quote seems to be everywhere, but there's no real source being cited as to when and where it came from. Unfortunately, we live in a day and age now where everything has to be fact-checked. And a standard practice that I like to follow is whenever I'm trying to reference something, I like to reference it from the direct source. So in this case, I was curious as to know, where did this quote come from and what was the context it was being used in? Because obviously there had to have been more to the story than just blurting this out. So in my research, what I've discovered, in 2009, The Guardian wrote a list of quotes that Prince Philip allegedly had said. And as you can see, here is where this quote originally first appears. In the event that I am reincarnated, I would like to return as a deadly virus to contribute something to solve overpopulation. Even though it's stated here, it doesn't state where it came from. So I continued to dig, and eventually I found the source. So this quote came out of Prince Philip's foreword for this book, If I Were an Animal by Fleur Cowles. So this book was a compilation of 100 celebrities answering this one question: what would you choose to be if you could be reincarnated as an animal? All the proceeds from the book then went to the World Wildlife Fund, which makes sense as to why Prince Philip wrote the foreword. As it is known, the World Wildlife Fund was an organization that was close to his heart. Now, I did try to find this foreword to read the whole thing in its entirety, but unfortunately, there was nothing in digital form. The best that I could do was finding the exact quote that was included in a review of the book. Here's what it says. Finally, Prince Philip of Britain, whose foreword to this strange species of anthology, written on Buckingham Palace stationery, laments the near extinction of a great many animals caused by population explosion and human depredation. He suggests revenge. I must confess that I'm tempted to ask for a reincarnation as a particularly deadly virus, but that is perhaps going too far. So yes, folks, the quote was partially correct. Whoever wrote the quote in The Guardian got it wrong, and unfortunately, that's what had caught on fire all over social media. But when we see here, yes, this looks like this was supposed to be taken in jest. I can see the dry humor on this one, but there also is a serious component to it. So how did Prince Philip really feel about overpopulation? Well, let's hear it from him himself.
What do you see as the biggest challenges in conservation?
The growing human population. Because if where we are, there's nothing else.
And do you have views about what should be done about that?
Can't you guess?
Well, it could be on a spectrum from mass sterilisation to greater availability of contraception. I don't know what your views are as to what can be done about it.
Well, I think it might be described as voluntary family limitation.
Voluntary family limitation. So what exactly does that mean? He's not necessarily coming out and saying, no, you shouldn't sterilize people and prevent people from having children by doing the China thing. Voluntary self-restraint. So maybe going to school, getting career focused, spending time on developing a profession, then focusing on settling down and having a family. Now, when we look at the trends that we see here in the United States with pushing abortion, pushing birth control, and encouraging women to go back into the workforce because they are empowered women, all of this is part of trying to control population and keep it at bay. So empower the woman to make her think that she is equal to the man. Why would she want to have to stay home just to have babies and take care of the family? And what's resulted of this mindset is a reduction in women getting married, having children, having a traditional family unit, I mean, the concept of the nuclear family has been blown up here in the United States. But that's a topic for another day. Getting back to the royals. So, what influence did Philip have on the rest of his family? Well, you can tell that it has been adopted and embraced by Prince Charles, now King Charles. Charles has been an advocate of the environment ever since the early 70s, in which, caring for the environment became a key concern for him. And it definitely has influenced many of the things that we have seen over the last few decades, from his commitment to organic farming, as well as his awareness of the potential dangers of genetically modified foods. Emphasize one of the bigger concerns that he had was the resource depletion and the endangered wildlife. Taken from the royal website, here is a speech from 1970 that Prince Charles had given, in which he addressed overpopulation. Before I attempt an explanation of some of the terms I've already mentioned, it would be useful to examine the problems we are confronted with over conservation, which may help to sort out our attitudes towards their solution. One of the most basic problems is people. However carefully you plan or propose, you inevitably at some stage come up against human nature and impenetrable obstacles of obstinacy and prejudice. These are difficulties that have to be seen and taken into account. They cause tears of frustration, but don't last forever. In many places, the number of people is increasing faster than the resources of the local environment can cope, thereby exaggerating the problems of conservation. There are two main schools of thought here. One is that nothing need be done about population because nature is bound to react by producing a particularly virulent plague or virus. And the other is that something certainly needs to be done by man to prevent his overpopulation. Make what you want of it, folks, but this seems to be the school of thought among the globalists. They feel that the Earth's resources are being drained because there's too many people, particularly in India and Africa. In 2017, Prince William himself finds that overpopulation has become a problem in draining resources. Here's a speech that he gave in Africa for the Tusk Conservation Gala.
Africa's rapidly growing human population is predicted to more than double by 2050, a staggering increase of 3.5 million people per month. There is no question that this increase puts wildlife and habitats under enormous pressure. We're going to have to work much harder and think much deeper if we are to ensure that human beings and the other species of animal with which we share this planet can continue to coexist. When we look back, we have a mixed track record in this regard, but I'm always optimistic when I observe how young people in particular, all over the world, are motivated to reverse the trends of the past.
Now, I can understand how this speech came across as insensitive, considering Catherine was pregnant with Louis, and here he is talking about how Africans' population is spiraling out of control. We need to do something about it. And the royals are not the only ones who see this overpopulation as a problem to the planet. We have Bill Gates, who has been pushing vaccines onto Africa and India. No one talks about all the injuries and the human rights violations that are happening over there. It is noted Bill Gates is obsessed with reducing the population. About 11 days ago, I put together this video talking about the WHO and the royal family's involvement, particularly King Charles's alignment with the UN's Agenda 21, also known as the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, I personally think that this stuff is more important to be creating awareness around instead of focusing on Meghan Markle being shoved off of the red carpet. But obviously, there is an audience here that wants to see that. So what I've done here, if you made it this far, I have continued this population control ideology that is being pushed by the globalists over on the reading room, in which I go through the first chapter of a book called Control Oligarchs, which I highly recommend everyone take the time to look through it because it does explain how these billionaires operate, what has been happening, and what we could anticipate seeing happening if we don't do anything about it. I am hoping to upload more videos over on that channel that are not tailored to the royals, things that are happening in the United States that I find important we should be talking about. One of the goals of mine is to go through that pandemic treaty and highlight where the dangers are so more people can be informed and aware of the threat that it's posing on all of our civil liberties. It's a concerning thing to see our government so in bed with these people, not only from the US perspective, but as well the UK, Australia, all of the European Union, all on board lockstep in culling the people together in order for control. Not a good thing, folks. Definitely not a good thing. But anyhow, what do you guys think? Definitely leave your thoughts below. And as always, I will be back with more content. But until then, please be safe and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
It was such a fraud.